Good morning. This is Bill from Auto Europa Naples on a lovely Florida Friday morning. There's not a bird on the wire. It's free and clear. They're not up there waiting to peck my eyes out. There's no overhead airplanes. The temperature is in the very low 60s. You got a little bit of mist on the cars, but you know, given how nice it is, I can't even cry about that. I'm just very, very chipper today. I'm also chipper because I have the second of our two B-body Buicks. This is a 1983 Buick Park Avenue, which actually is not a very age-old name, the Park Avenue. Buick, of course, is. But Park Avenue really only became its own model in 1990. It was an Electra option package for quite a while. But even then, it only appeared first in like 1977. So it really hasn't been around that long. Buick, of course, is a different story. That was founded by a guy named David Buick. You know, that seems pretty straight and narrow. He came over from Scotland with his family when he was 2. Seemed to be a fairly nice guy, but not very lucky guy, at least not later in life. But anyway, in the beginning, he got into the plumbing business. He was pretty, you know, technical cat, definitely knew his way around a set of wrenches, and did quite well. He made a lawn sprinkler. He, you know, ended up making, you know what I have to do? This is very important, and I've got to work on this. I've come under a lot of flack locally and some of the comments for saying you know 12,000 times in a video, so I am going to work on that. I'm going to make every effort to cut that down. I didn't cut, I didn't count the last video how many times I said it, but if it wasn't 107, I just don't believe it, so that's something I have to work on. I hate that stuff. I got it from Little Richard. He says it all the time. I'm picking up his terrible habits. Hopefully I don't get into, you know, Asian massages and whiskey and whatnot, but well, too late for the whiskey. Anyway, let me carry on. David Buick. So he starts this plumbing business. He ends up making a process to coat cast iron bathtubs with porcelain, which went very, very well. And in fact, that process is still used today. So they found some tremendous success with that, him and his partner. But then he became absolutely infatuated with the idea of an internal combustion engine and started spending all his time on that. So his partner became very unhappy. You know, why? There, I did it again. God damn it. Anyway, his partner became very unhappy. Why are you working on this engine all the time? You really have to get back to making plumbing stuff. But anyway, they disagreed. Buick wouldn't stop working on the engine, so they split ways. In 1899, he formed the Buick Vim and Power Company and essentially became one of the oldest, if not the oldest now, car maker in the United States. I think, you know, Studebaker was from the 1860s, but they weren't making wagons. They didn't make a car until after 1900. Buick did build a car earlier than most other existing companies today, and did it quite well. In fact, he made an overhead valve engine, which nobody else did at the time. It was a Boxster motor. It was horizontally opposed, but it was overhead valve, and that's really significant for this main reason. The overhead valve engine is essentially the basis for every modern engine used in every car. So we can look to David Buick and thank him for that. You know, even an overhead cam design is essentially an overhead valve engine, and he was the first. And that motor saw great success. Buick, however, did not find great success. He spent all his time in the shop, all his time in development, didn't really bother building anything, so he couldn't really sell anything. So he didn't make money, so he had to get a loan from a buddy to keep the company going. It became the Buick Motor Company in 1903. Still didn't really have any great success other than in technological advancement. Finally, the thing was bought out by William Durant, the guy who started General Motors. He had made his fortune in the carriage business, and Durant bought Buick and turned it into the cornerstone of the General Motors lineup. He bought out Buick. Interesting stuff. So he gives Buick one share of the company worth, I don't know what it was worth, maybe $100 grand or something, which is like $2 million bucks. He bought that share off him then, so Buick goes his happy way without his company anymore and $2 million in his pocket. He gets into some oil deals, Florida real estate, God help him, ends up losing just about everything and dies in misery and bitterness in 1929 without a penny to his name, watching his company become one of the most successful, models in the whole, divisions in the GM lineup for years. So anyway, poor Buick. He did finally get inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame in 1974, but, he wasn't around to see it, poor guy. But anyway, Durant takes Buick and makes it part of his new GM approach to having a giant conglomerate. And instead of having all these car companies compete against each other, what he does is make them sort of a tier. So you've got Chevy, you've got Oldsmobile, you've got Buick, you've got Cadillac, and they form a lineup of success. So, entry-level people, they start out with Chevys, they're driving those things around, they start making a few more bucks. They're young still, so maybe they go into Pontiac because they want something sporty. Then they make a few more dollars, they get a little bit more gray, they buy an Oldsmobile. They keep going, they work their way up to a Buick, and then finally a Cadillac. And this was a very successful setup for General Motors for many, many years. Of course, that's sort of long gone by the wayside, just like Pontiac and Oldsmobile, which are, of course, vanished off the face of the earth. Kind of a shame. But Buick remains, and one of the reasons Buick remains is that it's a wildly successful international company in terms of branding. They sell 80% of their cars currently in China. Right now, Buicks, 80% of them are running around China. And that's not a new thing. Historically, Buick sold a bunch of cars to China. Sun Yat-sen drove one, and, all the sort of the Chinese elite from, the 1920s onward. There's a couple more you-knows. Oh, for the love of God. It's going to be hard to do. They also sold cars to New Zealand. They actually had a plant over there. South Africa, a few here and there. Israel bought a bunch of Buick, still does. And they have become a pretty successful brand internationally. In America, they have always been a car for, successful people who either can't afford a Cadillac, which is probably rare, or just find Cadillacs too ostentatious, so they needed something a little bit more conservative. The Park Avenue became known as a doctor's car, which I think fits the bill very nicely for what a Buick is. You can't be too showy, but you want all the luxury that you get in a fine product. Interestingly enough, here's a design cue. Okay, you have a couple of them. You see these four little trimmy things on the side. This is an historic Buick design philosophy called the Venti Port. That was made by a guy named Ned Nichols, first in 1949, who just cut holes in the side of his Buick, ran some wires and amber lights to the distributor, and when he would start the car, the amber lights would flash in sequence with the motor, like a fighter jet with a big, powerful radial engine. And the head of Buick absolutely loved it, so he insisted that all the Venti Ports be put on the 49 Buicks, but then it became a little bit too expensive to do, so they became fake and non-functional. A lot of people call these portholes the Buick portholes, but correctly they are the Venti Ports, and even to this day Buick has kept those and uses them as a design cue. It's supposed to be the number of Venti ports signifies how many cylinders the engine has, except that wasn't true for many, many years, and finally it did recently become true. So a 6-cylinder has 3 Venti ports and 8 has 4 on each side, and that's the way that's supposed to work. But that is, anyway, the Venti Port, which you'll see in a bunch of Buicks. They had something called like a dollar grin grill in the beginning. That was sort of the classic Buick grill. That morphed into what they call the waterfall grill, which this car has. A lot of Buicks in the 80s did, including that Grand National. And it's a very attractive looking grill design. God, do I like this car. I really do. I haven't seen a Buick Park Avenue, an 80s Buick Park Avenue, in 20 years. We got very lucky taking in that wagon recently. Look at that thing. What an absolute beauty. But I had bought this car first. I found this at a collector car auction up in Sarasota. All these Mustangs and Camaros and Corvettes around me, and I make a beeline for this big, ridiculous Buick because I just simply can't help myself. GMB body, full frame, incredible overhangs in the front and back, V8. It is awesome. I mean, it's absolute, and I know I'll get flack for that. I don't care. I mean, it's the antithesis of a performance car. That is the last thing that this car is about. And I don't care. It goes down the highway like the QE2. It's smooth. It's got a V8 that gurgles under the hood. It's got just absolutely ridiculous steering that you can move with your pinky, a tiny little steering wheel. This one is finished in a color, it's basically beige, but we used to call that Naples yellow because all the Caddies and Buicks that drove around were essentially this color. But I love these things for a variety of reasons. The judicious and plenty use of chrome on the bumpers, the trim on the bottom. This has those Riviera Buick sport wheels that I absolutely love. The 4 headlamps up front. I left the bug guard on. I couldn't help myself. It absolutely harkens to the 1980s, and I think it belongs there. I'm going to leave it. You buy this thing, you can take it off, but I think that's great. The chrome around the windshield, these ridiculous sort of 80s aftermarket window rain guards that you could put on it, more chrome. It's got opera lights that say Park Avenue. Very, very cool. This does have a vinyl roof in fantastic condition all around. You just don't see them like this thing anymore. I mean, this is a garage kept 41,000 mile 83 Park Avenue. It's as rare as a politician keeping his promise. It's just not something you're going to find. Oh, lordy. Anyway, let's get into this thing. So we're going to start inside the trunk. It uses this classic 2-key GM design, one oval, one square, so you know which one is which. Why bother using one key for both? And here you have this enormous trunk. Absolutely enormous. I mean, that's a full-size spare tire, and it's dwarfed inside the room that this thing has. And again, that's why a lot of people loved them, old guys. They know what's going on. You know, they can go to Home Depot and put a lot of crap in here, bags of cement, you know, whatever you need, you can put in this thing. It's fantastic in here, this sort of cheap GM gray, you know, all dude, they're the you-knows. Oh my God, I got to work on that. Anyway, that cheap sort of heavy-duty carpet, which works great. You've still got all the jack instructions and jack stowage stuff on the bottom of the trunk. Very, very cool. Rare that it doesn't have a trunk suck down, but I guess that's the difference between Buick and Cadillac. Nice. Let's have a look under the hood. I'm telling you, it is so hard for me to part with this car. So hard for me. If I didn't have a line on a 96 Buick Roadmaster wagon, I wouldn't even be thinking about it. Alright, let's get under here if I can do it one-handed. It's not easy to do one-handed. This is a big, heavy hood. Okay, this was the engine that Buicks were using at the time. It's a 307 Oldsmobile. You can tell that by this oil filler neck here in the front. The Chevys didn't have that. And it's a very, very good engine. I mean, obviously the horsepower rating is going to be crap because by the time 83 rolled around, it was all emissions. But it has oodles of smooth torque, and that is still enough to keep this thing motivated down the road in a very lovely way. Just looking under here, any kind of car guy is going to see how this thing was maintained. You see somebody added a coolant flush system there. Very nice. It's got a very fresh looking AC compressor. Somebody put some love into there. And you can also see it's never, oh, and a 719 battery. God, was I happy to see that. But you can see under the hood that this thing's been looked after, cared for, and is very proper. Also didn't spend any time, even if it was up north, they definitely didn't drive this in the salty roads because it's perfect. I was expecting to see a massive rust under here. You have to be careful with Florida cars because a lot of them start up north and come down here, and you know, you think you're getting something that's perfect from underneath, and instead it looks like it came up from the wreck of the Titanic. The hood sponge, the fiberglass underneath, still intact, still original, nice to see, and everything just lovely under there. I was very surprised to see that this used hood struts in 1983. I don't remember that. That's something I would have thought they were still using springs, but I guess modern GM was making its way into these cars by the time this one came out. Anyway, everything lovely under there, proper, good old reliable Oldsmobile engine, and nice to see. Look at the condition of that vinyl top. It's just awesome. Okay, here in the back. I mean, if that is not a Belgian brothel. I don't know what is. I mean, these pleated velour seats, spongy, cushiony. I mean, you could sit back there and giggle yourself senseless. It's so comfortable. Your Canadians are going to be thrilled. The only downside is if you're wearing the wrong kind of shorts or pants, it kind of sticks to this thing like Velcro. So sliding around isn't something you're going to do. You know, if the car cornered well, that might be a good thing, but it doesn't, so it really doesn't matter. You've got this ridiculous sort of big velour armrest here that you can put down. Hilariously, you know, typical 1980s, and I kept this as well. It's not original, the center brake light. When 86 rolled around and all cars had to get a center brake light, this became the hot, cheap, advanced auto part accessory of the year. Everybody raced out to make their 85 and older cars look like 86s by installing that brake light. Just absolutely nutty thing. I did it myself on my parents' 84 Saab. It was, you know, a joy then, but I find it ridiculous now. Up top, I don't know if I can get up there or it lights up, but it's hard to see. Right here, those are that fiber optic system that tell you if the brake lights are working. I love these grab handles. They could be very useful in sexual trysts, which you could still do in an 83 Buick like this. The door pan, unlike our wagon over there, is, you know, again, Donald Trump's guest bathroom. I even like the felty, I don't know if that's a rate, no it's not, because that's the speaker there, so this is just a gratuitous bit of felty cushion on the side of the car, maybe made to make your elbow more comfortable when it's there. You got these big giant marker lights, you've got a real ashtray with a lighter, your power window switch. You know, the fact that all of that, you know, again, for the love of God. Anyway, the fact that all of this is still together and looks the way it does is something akin to a miracle. If you look at a junker from this year, go to a junkyard where most of these cars are, I mean, all of this is gone. This is all cracked, exploded, popping off, falling. The carpet's white from fade. This little cover is long gone. The weather strip looks nasty instead of soft, supple, and lovely. It's incredible how well preserved this example is, and that's why I find it so miserable to give up. I just, God, I don't want to do it. And little opera lights with the Park Avenue stuff. All right, up front, same story, French whorehouse. You know, if this was red velvet, or, you know, God help us, would it be ridiculous? Thank God the brown is a little bit conservative. But you can see, again, oodles of fake wood trim everywhere, lovely little pull handles. You got a little bit of wear on the top of the what do you call it, the wood paneling there where an elbow would go. Nice patina, kind of adds to the car in my opinion. You've got your row of big chrome, ridiculous power controls. Of course, again, this Park Avenue is very much a luxury model, meant to give you very close to Cadillac style without the price tag or without the ostentatious quality. You got your power seats, which work good, they tilt, they do everything they're supposed to. You got your left and right power mirrors, very, very cool. Of course, your windows, these classic GM switches that I love. They're the switches of my youth, and everything looking great there. You've also got power heated mirrors, which are neat. You know, when the mist is on, they can hit a button and they'll defrost. Maybe they just say power mirrors. Maybe they're not heated. Yeah, they're just power control. I'm used to seeing when somebody's writing stuff on the mirrors, I think they're heated at a minimum, but of course this is 1983. And this incredibly little cool analog temperature gauge, which is, yeah, if we're 65, then it's reading correctly. So very, very neat stuff. And of course your Body by Fisher logo down here, company that built bodies for GMs. Let's hop in and fire it up. All right, that big Olds V8, not that big, but, you know, still classic. Fires right up, gives you a very healthy rumble. I feel like the exhaust might be a little tired, the baffles in the muffler or something, which is just fantastic because it has the greatest, I wouldn't change a thing. It's got the loveliest rumble to it. Nice V8 growl. Very simple instrument cluster surrounded by expanses of ridiculous wood paneling. You've got your 85-mile-an-hour speedo. with the 55 highlighted because that was, of course, the law at the time. You've got your traditional GM pull handle light control. You've got your automatic overdrive PRNDL indicator. This does have a 4-speed automatic in it, which is great. You got your giant gauge over there just for fuel. You know, this was obviously part of like a GM option package. You could have different gauges, maybe in sportier cars that use the same cluster, and they would make it, you know, have 2 or 3 in that space. But when you had a Park Avenue, you didn't need to know your tach or your oil pressure or anything, so it just became a giant fuel gauge. This is a fantastic tilt wheel. You can go way down till it's hitting your knees, or way up till you feel like a bus driver. This beautiful, tiny, skinny, thin steering wheel that you can steer with your pinky. The wood inlay in there, that's long gone in most of these cars. You know, unless you find a real garage queen like this one, you're not going to see it. You've got your horn works good. You got your cruise control and wipers. It's just fantastic. Up on top of the dash, in better shape than most. These things can get all warped and nasty over the years from sun. Very standard, traditional rear view mirror with no fanciness to it. You got a couple of, what do you got? Is this lit up? Let's see if it works. I found something that I can't get the lights to come on, and then maybe if you turn your lights on, no. Over here, no. All right, so there you go. No light in the vanity mirror, so if your girl's powdering her nose, it's not going to be that easy for her at night. Here is a, I love to see this, factory radio with a cassette deck. Still works. We got old people jazz on right now, which is great. The Delco GM electronic. You can see the power antennas still working. Look at that. God, that's another thing I miss, like pop-up headlights or power antennas. Tuning and volume. Nice. You've got this classic GM air conditioning control. It was identical in my 79 Firebird, and of course a row of idiot lights there. You also get a very luxury feature there, the rear defrost. Here you can see it. I kept the original 83 Buick. Oh God, I'll never be able to reach that. I actually have to switch hands. And there you got a Chilton manual and the original Electra Park Avenue owner's manual. So there it is. Oh my God, do I love it. Look at the width of the hood up there. And the, of course, those little fiber optic light indicators are just fantastic. Yeah, we're neutral. There we go. There's drive. And the bug guard. The bug guard. Thing of beauty. Yeah, I know. Look, I'm sure you guys would rather him doing a 997 turbo or something, and I'll get to that. But let me relive my youth, for the love of God. Have a bit of fun. Ah, the sound. There's just nothing like this generation of American car. It's gone. We've lost something. It's gone away. This was the most incredible highway cruiser, boulevard cruiser, zero effort to drive, zero feel from anything. You're just detached from it all. You've got V8 under the hood. It'd be nice if it still had the 455 from the 70s, but yeah, you know, emissions came along, whatever, long gone, but it's good enough, and you don't really need to hot rod this thing anyway. It's just a fantastic driver. Got freezing air coming from the the power brakes, and the car just nosedives. Just absolutely nosedives. Even with good shocks. Isn't that V8? Nothing like it. Smooth shifting, lovely. You're just lying back in this big, comfortable velour lazy boy, you know, taking in everything around you. It's absolutely a fantastic way to go down the road if you're not in a hurry. And, you know, like a cruise ship, you just sort of point it in the direction that you want to go, hit the gas, and navigate. And instead of driving and steering, you just aim for a point down the road like you would with a boat. And you hear that grumble coming from the V8. I'm not going to bother hammering it. There's absolutely no point. There really isn't. That's not at all the point of this thing. This is to transport sort of elegant, lovely, white-haired people to the country club in incredible comfort without, you know, running into any irritating issues like performance or driving feel. They're just going to get there, be happy, have their chicken Florentine, and come home. So anyway, I won't torture you with the big test drive around everywhere. This is a 1983 Buick Park Avenue GMB body made by one of the oldest manufacturers, I think still the oldest currently producing manufacturer in the United States, and an incredible cornerstone of GM for more than a century, and the biggest seller in China in terms of American cars, 80% again. That just amazes me. All the little Chinese guys running around in Buicks over there. It's incredible. This one is going to be for sale at our lot, much to my chagrin. If you have an interest, you can see it at www.aenaples.com. And Marty's going to sell it. He's not going to tell me about it. I'm going to hide in the back when it's delivered. I don't want to know, because it has been years since I've seen anything like this, and I think it'll be years since I do again. If that Roadmaster wagon doesn't pan out, I'm going to be miserable. Thank you very much for having a look. Really appreciate it. Hope I was able to cut down on the you-knows a little bit today. I'll keep working on that, and we'll see you very soon with the next one. Take care.